Hello, everyone. Welcome to the weekly show of What is School For? On this show, I interview leading educators, professionals, entrepreneurs, business people, parents, students, traditional, non-traditional students to come here to share with us. And we discuss, debate, and disrupt education. The goal is to future-proof the next generation. And today we are talking about mental toughness, resilience, and how to become our own superheroes. And join me live is the one and only Shawnee Harle. Shawnee is actually, we connected through LinkedIn. I'm really impressed by what she does. She's a 2-time Olympic coach and also a mental toughness coach and a high performance coach. And before we went live, Shawnee and I, we actually had a conversation. I was like, wow, really incredible. Like, I think everyone, we're all here for a trade and going to benefit from her insights on working with athletes and high performers and how you and I, educators and parents, we can help our children become their own superheroes to build up their resilience and mental toughness. So really excited. We are live on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Periscope, and on YouTube. And let me know in the comment section. A few people already joined us. Yeah, let me know in the comment section where you guys are joining us live from, social media wise and geographically speaking. So really excited and welcome to the show, Shawnee.
Yeah, let's do this. Let's go.
This is actually my first time talking to an Olympic coach, like a feeling a bit pressure.
Hey, I can help you with that. When you have mental toughness, it teaches you how to handle pressure.
That's awesome. But before I get into that, I want people get to know you a little bit. So what inspired you to become a mental toughness and high performance coach? So share your story, share your why with us.
I think it's like many of us, we look back at our own experiences and we say, wow, if I could do that again, what would I have done different? And I know that growing up, I played many, many sports and I did not have any mental toughness tools. Or if I did, I didn't know it. I got them by accident. And I was I was coaching in high performance for many years, almost 25 years. Mm-hmm. And then when I stepped away from coaching, I had to leave coaching and I had to stop being a competitive athlete for me to be able to see clearly. Because when you're in the problem, it's hard to see the problem. And it was only when I could remove myself and I really started to seeing the gaps that were out there. And I started noticing that we didn't have, as coaches, and then watching the athletes out there, we didn't have tools for them. Sport is hard. Life is hard. It's not just this big fluffy where we hold hands and light candles and sing Kumbaya and everything's going to be okay. Like, it is not like that. Sport, life, I kind of call it as 50-50. You get happy and crappy. And nobody was teaching our athletes and nobody was giving resources to the coaches and parents. Everybody's good when things are happy, but what about when things are crappy?
Amen.
And so I started thinking, wow, you need emotional intelligence. We need courage. We need resilience. We need grit. We need self-awareness. It's easy to handle happy, but there was nobody out there that I could see filling the gap to handle crappy. And that's where I'm just like, wow, we need glue. We need glue to fill in this crack. And so what I started doing, I'm like, how can I give people and how can I develop some mental toughness tools? And that's what I'm doing.
Oh, I love that. And this is actually, for some of you who are not familiar with my story, I don't work with athletes. I work with just like students. And I did notice over the last several years, there is a steady decline. In fact, research has shown this in terms of students' emotional intelligence, stableness and resilience. Like, I think I have been teaching, I have been in higher education for 2 decades. So when I first started my teaching career, if I give a student a C or like a D, an F, it's okay. I mean, they're not happy. But nowadays, if they get a B minus, oh my God, I worry that some of them will just like do something crazy, like ending their lives, things like that. And like I will share an article. In fact, I can share the screen right now. So this is an article that I actually just read as I was getting ready for our interview. So this is declining student resilience and a very serious problem for college. That is what I noticed. And I want to share this one quote from this article. I think it's really powerful here. I hope I can find it, but I can't find it here. So students haven't developed skills. Shawnee, you're talking about life skills, soft skill, emotional intelligence, how to, comfort their own emotions. And parents have solved all the problems for them. And so I really love this. And I want to ask you, before we dive into the specific house, so why do you think this is the case, right? And why people are becoming less resilient? Like what is happening in our society that has contributed to this?
Well, I think resilience and grit, I see you have those in your title. I think those are skills. I don't think that we may or may not be born with it. It's a skill, and a skill for me means you get better when you practice it. What that also means is if you don't ever practice it, you're not going to be very good at it. So every time you have, I use sport and athletes, but I use the word athlete. I use that word very loosely. I mean, you can be in grade 4 and be playing, soccer in your backyard with your brothers and sisters. And I would call that being an athlete anytime you're participating. And what I'm seeing the same thing that study is showing is that when I work with parents of the athletes, I ask them, what's your goal? And they're like, well, the number one thing I want from my child is to be happy. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. Now I say it with sarcasm because I'm like, I tell the parents, don't hire me to work with your child. If that's the goal, your child to be happy, don't hire me. I can't help you with that because life is 50-50 and so is sport. You're going to get happy and crappy. And so when parents say to me, well, I want my kids to be happy, what that shows me is anytime an emotion or a feeling or an event happens in their child's life, they want to remove it if it's bad, if it makes the child sad, if there's discomfort. And so remember what I said, I believe resilience and grit and mental toughness and emotional intelligence, I believe these are learned, but we can't learn them if we don't practice them. And more, we are not allowing our children to practice dealing with crappy. We take it away for them. So how can we get better at it?
Wow, you make me think. That is so profound. I'm reflecting on my own parenting journey, and we have quite a few people here. Like, let me know in the comment section if you feel guilty of doing this yourself, because as a parent, right, we feel pressured or obligated to, like, something bad is happening, like protect our children, do the problem solving for our kid. And so I love that is such a powerful statement. Thanks for sharing. Yeah.
Can I, you know what, you just made me think of something else.
Yeah, go ahead.
So what I also teach, so we'll keep talking about sport. And so, athletes will tell me, well, I'm afraid of losing, or I'm afraid of underperforming. I'm afraid of making a mistake. And then I talk to the parents, and the parents are like, yeah, I don't want that for my child.
Oh,
and
wow.
what I teach them is, I said, it's actually not losing or underperforming that you're afraid of. It's the feeling that comes with the losing, with the underperforming. You're not afraid of a thing. So winning, losing, mistakes, getting a medal, those are things. It's not things that we're afraid of. We're afraid of our feelings. And when we don't allow our kids, our athletes, to have a feeling, except happy ones, I don't think we can develop
So
EQ.
true.
I think that they're called feelings because we're supposed to feel them. And when did we start judging negative feelings as bad? Because if you think about a 5-year-old, 5-year-olds cry, they laugh, they have tantrums, they give you hugs. They don't have judgment around their feelings. I believe that we have learned that this bucket of feelings over here is good and this bucket of feelings over here is bad. Only have the good ones, don't have the bad ones. So how can we develop EQ, resilience, or grit when we have judged one set of feelings as bad and another set as good? Because we'll always avoid whatever we believe is bad.
That's so true. So true. I think, everyone, like I see a few parents, guilty of doing this. I'm myself. So how should we, I definitely want to ask you for some specific how-tos. So I feel like even the way we talk to our children, we need to change that. So give us some ideas. Let's say that my kid, I think you mentioned earlier, sports. I can see this can be applied to every single, doing art, doing schoolwork, like for me, running my business, right? Like, how should we reframe a situation, or instead of labeling this as something negative or not so good? So what should we talk about? How should we talk about this?
Well, I know that when I do my mental toughness work with kids and their families, this is what I tell them. I know I will have succeeded when your child and you as a parent is not afraid of having a feeling. That you're like, okay, here we go. Feelings, what you got? Bring them on. Any of them. I'm not afraid of a feeling. I think EQ says I acknowledge and understand how I feel, and I have the tools to know what to do with it. I think we're afraid of having a feeling because it brings fear and we're scared and we don't know what to do. Well, how about giving our kids and our own selves a tool that says, wow, I'm having a crappy feeling right now and it feels awful, but instead of running away from it, I know what to do with it. I believe that we want to teach our kids to be able to save themselves. Like the storm is coming. So learn to swim. Learn to put on a life jacket and save yourself. Learn to swim through the storm of emotions, the storm of feelings. And what I'm teaching parents is one of the reasons that parents jump in and save their kids from a poopy feeling or a crappy feeling is they can't tolerate it themselves. And so I tell parents, can you have emotional intelligence? And I use the acronym WAIT, WAIT, which actually means wait, pause, chill, take a moment, take a deep breath. And it stands for, what am I thinking? And if a parent can catch themselves saying, I'm getting ready to save my child because I feel uncomfortable with these uncomfortable feelings, I'm like, just wait and pause. Can you sit in the feeling? What is resilience? Resilience is the ability to tolerate discomfort. What's grit? The ability to work through discomfort, not avoid it, not push it away, not wish it wasn't there. So can we step back and wait and pause and say, you know what, this doesn't feel very good right now. And I can see my child doesn't feel very good right now. That is okay. Can we learn to tolerate discomfort? That to me, that's what mental toughness is. And that's a life skill. That's just not a sports skill. Learning to tolerate discomfort instead of trying to fix it, right? Parents are fixers. Let me fix this problem. Let me take this problem away for you. Well, unless it's life or death, isn't it okay sometimes for natural consequences to kick in? Losing sometimes is a natural consequence. Failing, making a mistake. These are natural consequences. Why is that bad to have a natural consequence? Don't we think there's tremendous learning in when we underperform, when we don't do as well as we wanted to, isn't emotional intelligence saying, wow, if I had a do-over, what would I have done differently? When we save our children from negative feelings, we save our children from failure, let's just use that general term, we lose the true opportunity for them to grow and learn to save themselves.
Wow. So powerful. I love how you said that parents are fixers. Wow, I feel like that again it should be our t-shirt. We should be using that as a constant reminder. Okay, so
hold on, I thought of something. You just made me think of something when you said fixer. And guess, so this is what happens. When we become the fixer, think about what we are, what message we're giving our kids. It's actually disempowering. Because now I'm telling you, you need to be fixed. There must be something wrong with you because I'm your fixer. What if we said, there's nothing wrong with you? You don't need to be fixed. I can guide, I can nudge, I can push, I can pull. We disempower. I believe we disempower our children when we fix, because we're telling them, you don't have the skill set to be able to fix yourself. You obviously don't know enough. You're not mature enough. So I will fix you. And then we teach our children to be dependent upon us to fix them.
Well, it's so true. I mean, like I think about this in the traditional education space. We do this all the time, right? When students come to school, we tell them, study this, do this, and like, you know, first grade, do this, second grade, day one, Monday, do this exam, all those things. And then one day we ask our children, hey, you are on your own, figure it out by yourself. But then we haven't trained them, we haven't prepared them, like all of a sudden, right? They're on their own, they're of course panicking. So what you mentioned is like, reminds me of my own journey, like how I'm raising my own children, right? Instead of always doing things for them, I need to let them actually practice this so that one day when they are independent, they have lots of practice under their belt so they can actually do this. That is really powerful. A mental shift for me. I wonder if you can give us some specific, like, you know, let's say that they are going through an emotional storm, right? Maybe their best friend broke up with them or they lost a game, and like, how can we help them like nurture and embody and embrace that emotional journey? Any like tips that you can share with us?
Well, this happens. It's one of the reasons why I love sport. If you ever wanted to have a feeling, play a sport. I'm telling you, it brings every emotion when we're doing that. And what I tell parents is when your child, and I'll use sport as an example, has underperformed or lost, or they're crying, they're upset. Instead of saving them from the emotion, how do we allow them to emote? And what I teach parents is the best question is to ask a question. So here's what parents normally do. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's not that bad. Oh, don't cry. Don't cry. Don't cry. And now we're judging. Do you see how now that places judgment, and we're showing them that it is wrong? So what if we just, when things are going poorly or something happens, we just give them the biggest hug ever. And we just love them. And we say, tell me how you're feeling. And then we practice empathy. Empathy is different than sympathy. Sympathy is, I feel sorry for you. And if I feel sorry for you, what am I going to do? I'm going to try to save you. I'm going to try to fix you. I'm going to try to help you. Empathy is, I know what it feels like to be in your shoes. And allow them to have these feelings. And then I love this question. Tell me how you're feeling. That must feel so hard. I can see you're hurting. I can feel your tears. Tell me more about that. What is it that is making your heart so sad? Tell me how you're feeling. I just think those are such wonderful, healthy conversations to be able to speak courageously and truthfully about how we feel. It's so different than, oh, don't cry, it's going to be okay. There's a difference between those two things. And if you ever want your kids to feel safe with you, allow them to have a feeling, and that it's okay to talk about any feelings, and it's okay to cry. Even boys, it's okay to cry.
Yeah, I think we need a new vocabulary book in terms of like what to say to our children and what to not say. I think it's very common that people say, oh, oh, no big deal. Why are you crying? Oh my God, is that even a big deal?
Yes.
I probably said that this morning. My children, they were fighting. I probably said something. Yeah, so we shouldn't say, like, help them honor, right? Tell me how you are feeling, like, right? Like, say things like that. Okay, powerful.
The other thing I would say is what that does is it normalizes it. So when they're crying, like in my mind as a parent, when my kids are crying, I'll be like, that's normal. In fact, do you know how many, in my mental toughness camp, do you know how many times an athlete talked about a feeling, embarrassed, upset, disappointed, et cetera, and every time I said, that's normal, that's normal, that's normal. If we started being able to interpret all feelings as normal, would we have to be afraid of them? The reason that we're afraid is because we think that I'm not supposed to have a bad feeling. I tell all of the athletes and parents, whatever feeling you're having, that's normal. And if I believe as a parent that the feeling is normal, then I don't have the feeling that I have to fix it.
Totally.
If it's normal, I don't have to fix it.
Oh, it's so true. It's so true. I noticed that when I actually work with clients, when students on my program, like a part of my job is to normalize their fear of failures. They are feeling like imposter, I'm not good enough, can I launch a show, this and that, to normalize that. So, what you are saying is that as parents, we should be doing that since like day one when they are young children. I love that. Yeah. So it's so interesting to like, I think many people are commenting, also talking about sports. So you are like a 2-time Olympic coach, and you also work with so many high performers. And share with us, what are some key observations that you notice from working with this population?
So are you meaning working with with
athletes or high performers? And I'm just curious and to see what are some key observations or lessons that you have learned from working with them. And some of those lessons can also be applied to people who are not athletes or just like everyday people. Yeah, I'm curious. You kind of mentioned that a little before we went live. You were talking about competition, right? And so I'm curious, maybe you can elaborate on that and also add a few additional ones if you like kind of common themes after working with so many people.
I would imagine that if we looked at high performers across a number of contexts, we would probably see so many similarities. And, one of the things that I've noticed about the high performers in sport is they are not afraid to take a risk. Mm-hmm. They know that the best fruit is out at the end of the branch, and they crawl out there even knowing the branch might break. They're willing to take a risk, but they've learned to bounce back when the risk doesn't work, because that's why it's called a risk. A risk means there's no guarantee of the outcome. That's what a risk is, because if you know the outcome, it's not a risk. So they are not afraid to take risks. But there's something deeper than that. The reason why is they know in their heart, if the risk doesn't work out, they're going to be okay. Mm-hmm. But you're not going to take a risk if the risk doesn't work out and now you're devastated. You might not take another risk again. These high performers, they bounce back. They take a risk. It may or may not work. And when it doesn't work, it doesn't make them hide for the rest of their lives. They're like, wow, dang, that didn't feel very good. That didn't go the way I wanted. And then they take another risk. So they're continually raising the bar for themselves. And I love the phrase best self. They're always trying to, what does my best self look like? And my best self, every time my best self gets better, now I'm striving for the next level of my best self. And these high performers, they take risks, and they bounce back from mistakes because they believe that it's not only about the outcome. Because if the only thing I'm focused on is the outcome and the outcome is unknown, think about how scary that is. They are very good at focusing on the process. And when the outcome doesn't work out, they try again. That's again, grit, resilience, they bounce back quickly. The other thing I would say is that they are competitive in many ways, but they're also competitive with themselves. Knowing that, I think that's a great skill for all of us. It isn't being better than somebody else necessarily, although certainly sport teaches us that. But these high performers are always like, okay, what am I doing today that I can improve my score from yesterday? They're always looking for these little like increments of one degree. Can I be 1 degree better today? Can I be let's say 1%? They're just looking for little increments to raise the bar for their best self. And it is, here's another one. This is another one for high performance. Their capacity for hard work is unparalleled.
Wow.
Their capacity for hard work is unparalleled because success shouldn't be an accident, right? It's like, whoa, I got on the top of the podium. How did that happen? No, you got on the top of the podium because you knew that was coming. Success is not an accident. And they have a capacity for hard work and focus like I've never seen before.
Wow. So powerful. Very, very, very powerful. I think I feel like almost every lesson you shared, observation you shared, can be applied to a non-athlete, right?
It's a life.
About my life.
We're talking about life. I mean, I'm talking about sport, but sport's a microcosm of life, just like your classroom without walls. You're teaching them about life.
Yeah, totally. So here is, everyone loves this. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So here is a question from Alice. Thank you for joining us live. So how can schools better support the practice of taking risks, grit, and resilience? And maybe like schools and maybe even parents. So what are some, should we like be going out and intentionally like seek challenges? So give us some exercises and examples that schools can apply and even like parents can apply at home.
Well, it's such a fantastic question because if you think about how we are wired, we're wired for safety. Safety is the opposite of risk. And so if I'm going to take a risk in your classroom, as the leader, you have to show me that it's going to be safe. Otherwise, there's no way I'm taking a risk. I'll give you an example of what I do in a basketball camp. So I've got 100 kids sitting in front of me, and we haven't done a drill yet. And I tell them the goal this week is to make as many mistakes as possible. That's the goal. If you're not making mistakes, you're hiding. We want you to come in and grow. So this is how I start. And I tell them, here we're going to go do a drill. And I tell them right up front, I guarantee you right away in the first 2 minutes of this drill, somebody is going to mess up and make a mistake. And I'm going to blow my whistle and I'm going to stop the entire gym and I'm going to point that mistake out. And that's all I say. And these little kids are looking at me like, they don't even know. They're like, oh my goodness, I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm like, yes, because this is what fear looks like. So the drill goes, and in the first 2 minutes, someone makes a mistake. In basketball, a big one it's called an air ball, where you shoot at the hoop and the ball doesn't even hit the rim. Like it doesn't even get there. Like it's so obvious, the whole gym sees it. And so I blow the whistle and I'm like, stop! I said, did you just shoot an air ball? And they're looking at me like, oh my goodness, am I going to get in trouble? Because they're used to getting in trouble for mistakes. And this is what I say. I pause and I'm like, did you just shoot an air ball? They don't even answer. And I'm like, yes, you did. And I love it. because we are not afraid of air balls in this gym. We are not afraid of mistakes. And every time we make a mistake, that is proof and evidence that we are being courageous, that we are growing. And so as soon as I do that, everyone comes up to me, they're like, Coach, I just shot an air ball. Coach, oh, look over here, I just shot an air ball. The reason I'm giving you this example is I've made it safe for them to take a risk. They know that risks and mistakes are going to be celebrated, not punished, because I don't care about the outcome. I care about the process. And taking a risk requires courage. How do we develop courage? We take a risk. And that's my goal. I want to develop courage, so I have to make it safe for them to take a risk. And we celebrate mistakes. We celebrate setbacks because it's proof and evidence of courage.
I love this. Actually, like for my program, the first day I will explain our classroom culture, and one of the principle is that we celebrate mistakes. So I love it. I love it. It is so important, right? Like recently, a few weeks ago, I had a conversation with a high school teacher. So she teaches high schoolers math. So she said those students, they are so afraid of making mistakes and writing down wrong answers. Guess what? They need to use pencils with the eraser on the top. If there's no eraser, they refuse to use the pencil to write down anything. That's how afraid they are to make mistakes. I was like, wow. Yeah, I agree. I that's so incredible. I think, the challenge for homework for everyone doing us live right now is when we go home, like ask our children, these 7 days, go make mistakes, right? And then like see how crazy, how disruptive they can become and learn from that. I love it.
Well, if you think about what you made me think of is, I was thinking about the eraser example that you just gave with the pencil with the eraser. I would call that the pursuit of perfection. And I think it's incredibly unhealthy because the pursuit of perfection is actually about gaining approval. What will you think? What will you think of me when I'm perfect? What will you think of me if I'm imperfect? I like to say it's the pursuit of excellence. Excellence is different than perfection, and excellence looks different in every one of us. I look at it as best self, and the pursuit of perfection makes us fearful, and then we avoid failure. The pursuit of excellence says it's a rocky road to get there, and the only way that I can get there is to make mistakes and to take risks and go to the end of the branch and have the branch break and then figure out to do when I'm laying on the ground because the branch broke. How do I get up and save myself? And I think that we can develop this culture in our classrooms. I think we can develop this culture in our homes. I think we can develop this culture with our athletes. It's the process, and let's develop courage. And so if I take it from, Brene Brown, she says you can be brave and afraid at the same time. And, this is what I teach the athletes. I said, can you be afraid of shooting an air ball and still take the shot? Because those two things can happen. You can be scared. You can be scared and brave at the same time. I just think that is so powerful. I think that's what courage is. I'm afraid to make a mistake, but I'm going to try anyway. You see how we're not trying to remove the fear. I'm not trying to remove the fear.
Totally, 100%. It's like my life. The day when I submitted my resignation letter, I decided to build my own school. I was so scared. I was so excited at the same time. I don't know. Like, it was like I had no idea how my own journey is going to unfold. But at the same time, I'm excited, like being brave. So it makes so much sense. Yes. So here's a really interesting comment from Patty. And thanks for joining us live. And, like adults raised without the ability to make mistakes become ashamed. I so agree. I can be vulnerable here myself. I actually grew up in China. I came to the US when I was only 21 to study. So I was a student in China. I hated Chinese education, but I was a very good student. So for my entire life, my score was always very good, even though I hated learning. So coming to the US, the educational system here is very different. I can't just like memorize everything anymore. So I had my very first failure, and that failure almost destroyed me. It was my very first failure, a big one in my life. I still remember I went to the bathroom. I just cried and cried. Now I don't even remember what this epic failure in my mind was back then. It was like really nothing major, but because I never had any major failures in my life, so when I had that very first one, it almost destroyed me. So so that statement is so true, so true.
Well, I would also like to add that when if we think about what the definition of failure is, it's based solely on the end result.
Mm-hmm.
With no focus on the process. You can do a lot of things right in the process and still get a failure on the outcome. And yet, where does devastation come from? Where does shame come from? Shame comes from the focus on the outcome. Well, and then we forgot to even give ourselves any credit for the process.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is what that courage is. I'm going to go through the process without knowing what the end result, what the outcome is going to look like. And I've also, another thing that I believe about shame is really big in sport as well. And particularly in these younger athletes that I'm working with. In fact, that word came up in the chat box in the mental toughness camp that I was running. And what I think about shame is, I think shame is based on only the end result. Right? That there's no reward given to the process. I also believe that what I teach with the athletes in my mental toughness is I ask them, where did you get the shame from? And what they say is, somebody made me feel that way. And what I say is, well, how do you feel about it? I think that shame is learned. I think that shame is also a bit of we gave our power away, and we allowed somebody to make us feel like X, and we forgot to ask ourselves, what do I feel about me? What do I feel about this process? What do I feel about my courage, my grit, and my resilience? And we give, let's say an opinion, there's 100% in an opinion. I think a lot of times when we feel shame, we gave 100% of the opinion to an outside source, and we took 0 for ourselves. And I teach athletes that, and parents, but the athletes that I work with, I'm like, what's a healthy ratio for opinions? So let's use shame, blame, guilt, all of these awful emotions. You gave 100% away to someone else. And I teach the athletes that I work with, you need to take at least 70% for yourself. And that means anybody on the outside only gets 30. And for some of the people in your life that you don't want them to be your friends, and they're not the kind of people that you want to hang out with, they only get 1%. And you got to take the other 99. And because shame is very much feels, you feel very disempowered. So I teach these young people to take their power back and stop giving it away, and only give away a healthy percentage. Because who's the most important approval? It's self-approval.
Yeah, I love that. Here's a quick exercise. I actually read it. It just reminds me of this exercise. And it is something that you can do by yourself. If you look at your palm, so like if you know a little bit more about palm reading, so the line that is the closest to your thumb is the lifeline. So this line kind of represents your entire life, longevity, things like that. So when you make a fist, you will see that 2/3 of the lifeline is actually inside your fist. So what this means that we at least control 2/3 of our life. And so I read that when I was a little kid. I just love that. Now every time, I just remember when I make a fist, like, wow, 2/3 of my lifeline is actually inside my hand. And I just want to share that. It just reminds me of that. Yeah. So here I see a question that I missed earlier from Yumuna. I hope that's how to pronounce your name. And he asked you to explain kind of the athletes, their hardworking spirit, unparalleled. So what do you mean by that? Can you give us some specific examples? I love this question. Thanks for asking.
So maybe the best way to say it is, I use this phrase a lot: be, do, have. Be willing to do what it takes to have what you want. And when I watch high performers, that's what they do. They are so clear on what they want, and then they're willing to do what it takes to get that. So if I give you another example, I had an athlete that I worked with back in the day. She wanted to be on the all-star team, and I'm like, wow, that's so exciting. Let's sit down and let's talk about that. And so we started making a list of all of the things that she was going to have to do in order to be on the all-star team. And she sat there and she's watching, and I can kind of feel like the air coming out of the bubble. And she says, okay, coach, I'll get back to you on that. And so the next day she comes and says, coach, I don't think I want to be an all-star anymore. And I'm like, well, that's good to know. What that showed me is I tell athletes, they tell me, I'll be like, what do you want? I want to win the gold medal. I want to be on the podium. I want to make the team. And I'm like, whoop, whoop. I said, that doesn't even excite me. Everybody wants that. So if everybody wants that, how come not everybody gets it? And that's when I came up with this be, do, have. The people that get what they want are willing to put in the work, whatever that work might look like. And I tell people, if you're not willing to go be, do, have, change your goal. Make the goal easier, then it's easier to get it. These high performers, they raise the bar, and they are so clear on what it's going to take to get there, and they are willing to do it. Be willing to do what it takes to have what you want.
I love that. Yeah, I love it. And you also mentioned, on your website that we all know, we kind of discuss a little bit fear of failures, and which we can kind of know. But you also mentioned the fear of the pressure of success. So I thought that was really interesting. But the more I think about it, the more it actually makes sense. So can you explain that to us a little bit more?
Well, I found that high performers, well, let me put it the other way. So if I think about a math class and somebody who doesn't think they're very good at math, they just don't want to be the worst in the class. But if I think of somebody who's really good at math, they're afraid of what happens if I'm not the best in the class. Those things come from different places. What I've learned is some of these high performers, there's a fear of not winning. The pressure becomes absolutely enormous. So it's the fear. So what they do is, so in sport, we call it playing not to lose, which is different than playing to win. Those come from different places. That would be the same in a math class. So think about that. Are you playing to win, or are you playing not to lose? One of those comes from a place of fear. One of those comes from a place of courage. I think that's the same in a math class, an English class. Are your students, answering these math questions to win, or are they answering those questions not to lose? Very, very different. And when this is one thing that holds high performers back, because the expectations become so high. They're expected to win. They're expected to get A+. They're expected to be first, top of the class. And then what happens is they start coming from a place of fear, playing not to lose. Different than playing to win. One is courage, one is fear.
Wow, powerful. Yeah, totally. I love that. Thank you. That's a a really powerful explanation. And can you also give us some ideas? We mentioned this, bouncing back from failures. And so what are some exercises that we can do to bounce back from like failures or mistakes in life?
Well, I think the best thing is to normalize it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is the example I use. You have a 5-year-old, a coloring book. They do not color in the lines.
Mm-hmm.
And when they color outside of the lines, they don't go, oh my goodness, I'm the worst colorer in the world. Look at how many times I went outside the lines. They only learn when they're older that coloring outside the lines is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Failure is learned. So what if we normalized it? What if we said that failing, in fact, you know what? In sport, you fail way more than you win. There's only one winner. That means everybody else failed?
Yeah.
No. But that's what sport teaches us. So what I'd say, my advice is, let's normalize failure. Let's normalize mistakes. Like say, well, yeah, this is normal. The best athletes in the world fail every day. The highest scholars in the world failed an exam sometime in their life. So I normalize it. And then here's the other thing that I think is a really great tool. When we normalize it, we're not as afraid of it. And then what I say is, what would you do if you had a do-over? Because don't you think that mistakes and failures bring information? But only if we have the courage to look at it. If we're afraid of the failure, we are not looking at it. We don't even want to see it. We don't want to acknowledge it. In fact, we want to run from it as fast as we can. I'm saying, no, I want you to look right at it. Stare that failure right in the face, because our mistakes bring information if we're willing to pay attention. What would you do if you had a do-over? That's such a great question. And then come up with those answers and then say, great, because the do-over's coming. We always get a do-over. There's always another test. There's always another game. There's always else something else coming where we can practice the do-over.
Wow, really powerful. Yeah, normalize it. Yeah, exactly. When it happens, it's something that we expect. Yeah, I love it. Very, very powerful. Yeah. So there are a few things that I noticed that you mentioned on the website that really intrigued me. And you mentioned that so far we have been talking a lot about parents. I want to go a little bit deeper on this. So you said that confidence is overrated and unreliable, and that caught my attention. Why is that? Explain to us.
Well, I'll just give you my opinion. And remember, when somebody gives it, well, and I've been doing that all day today, but remember, an opinion just means it's true for me, right? It just means it's true for me. It may or may not be true for the listeners, and that's okay. So I'll give you my opinion. I believe that confidence is overrated and unreliable because I think our definition of confidence is skewed. And this is my definition. I don't know if this is mine. I think I heard it somewhere. I'm not sure. But this is what I say for confidence. Confidence is an emotion based on results. Confidence is an emotion based on results. Well, what that means to me is, if you're not good at something, how in the world would I ever expect you to be confident? And I see parents doing this, just get out there and be confident. And I tell them that is the worst advice in the world. Stop saying that. So here's, as an example, we're having this conversation about a topic that I feel confident with. Well, why? Think about how long I've been working at it. Thinking how I've practiced it. How many times have I done interviews? How much research have I done? Well, I'm confident because I'm competent. If you said to me, okay, Shawnee, I want you to come into my studio and we're going to do a live interview. And you are going to talk about, you're going to do a math lecture. And then I'd stand up in front of your little whiteboard that I can see there, and I'd be like, oh oh my goodness. And then you'd be like, come on, you got this. Just be confident. I'd be like, I cannot.
That's such a great example. Yes.
I cannot feel confident because I don't have competence. Therefore, confidence is earned. But when I work with athletes, I never talk about confidence because it's overrated and unreliable because it's an emotion, and our emotions are not reliable. Our emotions are up and down. We're all over the place with our emotions. Totally normal. So this is what I teach. I said, how about let's replace confidence with courage? So if I was standing in front of your whiteboard and you're asking me to deliver a math lecture live, I don't get practice, I don't get a do-over, it's live. And you said to me, come on, you got this, just be confident. But if you said to me, Shawnee, just go find some courage, I'd be like, I think that I could find courage. I might not do it that well, but I would still be able to proceed because I believe that confidence is an emotion and courage is an action. Confidence is an emotion, courage is an action. We can teach our kids and ourselves to be courageous because there's athletes that I work with. I'm like, well, what's it going to take for you to be confident? They're going to be like, well, I have to be a really good shooter. And I'm like, well, you could wait a really long time before you ever feel confident. Because competence takes time. You can be incompetent and still be courageous. You can be not good at something. And so I tell athletes that I work with in my basketball camps, you're going to be afraid and you're not really, you may not be a good shooter. I want you to shoot anyway. So I didn't say to them, oh, just be confident in your shot. I said, no, it's okay if you're not confident. Shoot anyway, because that's how you practice courage. Courage is an action. We do not need to let the emotion of lack of confidence hold us back, and it does. Lack of confidence, that's why I don't like that word. It holds us back because we will not take action until we feel confident. I'm like, well, that's not going to work very well. What if you never feel confident? Well, so you're never going to take a risk. And I'm like, well, then choose courage instead.
I love it. Oh, so powerful. Yeah, people are taking notes. Me too. This is great. Yeah. So here's another powerful statement. Everyone keep taking notes. So why, here's another one. Why feedback is different from praise?
Ooh. I love these questions.
Who developed them, right?
Okay, this is, oh boy, I love it when we chase squirrels like this. It's like, oh, squirrel, let's go get it. All right, this is what it means. Oh boy. All right, I'll try and do it succinctly. Sometimes when I'm chasing squirrels and I get on a tangent, I can really go for a long time chasing that squirrel. So I'm going to try and just chase this squirrel short, as efficiently as possible. All right. I believe that feedback has two pieces. It's either judgmental feedback or factual. When we praise our kids, you're amazing, you're awesome. When we point their mistakes out, come on, you got to work harder than that. I can't believe you missed that shot. What? You got a C+ on that exam? Seriously? So one of those is praise, one of those is criticism. In my opinion, both of those fit into the category of judgmental. Judgmental means it's based on your opinion. I think you're amazing. Well, parents say that to the kids all the time, and I watch kids and I'm like, that wasn't amazing in my opinion. Sometimes we're fake with with our praise. But the reason that I try and steer parents away from that, and I'll give you the antidote in a moment, is because when we use judgmental feedback, such as praise or criticism, we teach our kids and our athletes to be dependent upon our opinion. So when I say you're amazing, they're like, oh, I want to do it again. So tell me again how amazing I am. And we create this dependency. And what we teach them is, you need my opinion. And therefore, you should, not only do you need it, you want it, and you should keep searching for it. Now, we're not doing this consciously, right? We're not doing it consciously. But we teach them, I call it this, we teach them to be needy for praise, needy for feedback, always asking for an outside opinion about what somebody thinks. And then here's what is so worrisome for me. Think about what self-esteem gets developed. In fact, I don't even think of it as self-esteem because it's based on someone else's approval. So instead of judgmental praise, I coach parents to do factual. So factual means, what did you see? Hey, I saw you XYZ. So I talk about what I saw. It's a fact. When I say I think you're great or I think you're not great, that's an opinion. And guess what? Kids believe your opinion because you're the adult with all of the power. You're the coach with all of the power, and they believe the opinion, even if your opinion is wrong, skewed, biased. So when we use factual, let's use math, it'd be something like, hey, I noticed that you got a C+ on the exam. How did you feel about that? Can we talk about that? Can we look at that and say, wow, that's interesting? So it becomes this, it's a collaboration. You know what? This is what parents tell me all the time. Oh, Shawnee, it takes a village. I mean, it does. And I'm like, how come you're not including the villagers? Because the villagers are the kids. We say it takes a village, and then we don't include the kids when we build the village. We just tell them what to do, and we order them, and then we praise them and criticize them. And what I tell coaches that we do really well, and parents too, is we actually manipulate behavior using reward and punishment. So we manipulate behavior using reward and punishment. I believe that when we can think about factual, this is what I saw happen. These are the facts. The facts are indisputable. The facts are indisputable. So here they are. That's why they're called facts. And then we talk about it. What did we learn from it? How did you feel about it? What did you miss? What would you do if you had a do-over? Or we say, you're amazing. And then we add a fact. So in basketball, a parent can say, you're amazing. And then they can say, because my goodness, did you ever hustle back hard on defense? So we have the praise, but then we include a fact. Because who do we want to own the action? We want the kids to own the action. And the parents own it all of the time by giving judgmental opinion. And then the kids don't own it. The kids look for the parent or the coach, and sport is huge, for them to feel good about themselves. I want to say, you know what, you're amazing because you hustled back on defense. That's how I help them own the behavior. Because they can be like, wow, I am amazing. I did hustle back on defense. And then we have to teach them the other. You know what, today you weren't quite as amazing. Well, that's truth. Now let's deal with it. What else could you have done? If you had to do over, what have you done differently? What did you think? You know what? I'll tell you, parents and kids are so not on the same page. I hear parents say, Shawnee, my kid doesn't work hard. And then I talk to the athlete, and the athlete's like, oh, I'm a really hard worker. And I'm like, okay, two different opinions. Guess who always gets the upper hand? The parent, because they have the power. How do we get connected on the same page? How do we help these kids own their behaviors? Not only that, if you're going to own your behavior, that means you have to own your emotions. That's a big one. And you have to own your success and your failure.
Yeah. Oh my God. Powerful examples and so many points. But we're running out of time. I just want to, you're talking about reward and punishment. Like most parents know that punishment is bad, but reward is also bad because slowly we're taking away our children's intrinsic desire to learn, right? So I love that's such a great point. And it's so funny that you were talking about coloring. I just remember I recently had a conversation with a dad, and they decided to homeschool their children because they noticed that when their children were doing coloring, like 5 years old, started to ask for permission from their parents. Oh, mom, dad, can I actually color outside the line? And it was like, yeah, exactly. So, wow, so many great points. And everyone like is just commenting and loving you. So unfortunately, we don't have much time. I know we can keep talking about this forever, right? Shawnee is so amazing. And so share with us, where can people learn more about you? I have your website here. And I also shared your LinkedIn earlier. So share with us, where can they get more of your awesomeness?
You've got both things up there. My website is all my contact information. My eyes are doing this because I'm watching this scroll along the bottom. All of my contact information is on my website. You can get me through LinkedIn. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram. So you've given people anything that they need to be able to contact me is right there on your screen.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much again, Shawnee, for a great conversation. So next week, same time, same location. So I have my dear friend Klaus, and he is a senior advisor to McKinsey. And we are going to talk about innovation and change. He is a great consultant and speaker, and of course, parenting and education. So how you can help your children be more innovative and creative and things like that. So we're excited, and come join us next Friday. And make sure you guys follow Shawnee, who is really amazing. And because you dropped so much value. So thank you so much, Shawnee, and thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live on a busy Friday. I appreciate you guys. A big hug to you, and I hope to see you next Friday, same time, same location, and enjoy your weekend. Bye, everyone.